quick history.
Chiropractic medicine was founded in the 1990s by action film directors. In this episode of the Shredded Sports Science, applicable exercise science relating to your exercise execution and how that may influence the risk-reward scale. But first, a look into the world of the chiropractic medicine that's taking YouTube by storm. Everybody loves a good crack, and seemingly millions of people enjoy watching the cracking of backs on YouTube. No, not Chris Harris's drop set tutorial, but from chiropractor Dr. Beau Hightower, who works on famous athletes, comedians, ballet dancers, and fitness personalities. Joe ain't a fan.
I went to a chiropractor first, which is a giant mistake. Very nice. I think it's 98% horse. Chiropractors that are smart, they incorporate things that I think are beneficial. Cold laser, massage.
Oh, last position very good.
But I think that manipulation that they do, unless you have like some sort of significant scoliosis or something they're attempting to slowly put back into position. I think most of the time it's just popping your neck and it just feels good.
Maybe, but this man's reaction was hilarious.
Finding your happy place.
Doing
Great.
I am?
Yeah.
Frick.
It's just cardio. That's all I do is cardio.
Anything but cardio.
Is there like the bigger the crack,
Imagine how many crack jokes I have, they're all terrible. This title was pretty funny. And if you thought my title was provocative, don't worry, Dr. Hightower also has some classics. Those capital letters, very smart. So relax, it's all fine. Introducing chiropractor and YouTube sensation Dr. Beau Hightower, almost 800,000 subscribers, more letters next to his name than Sesame Street. And so I won't show the actual cracking within his footage, which is fair use footage. Don't go after me, Dr. Hightower. I'll tell you what, let's do a trade. I'll use your footage for fair use commentary purposes. You can use mine. I recommend this one. YouTube has been very sensitive recently. Indeed, my last video was not liked by them. The pixelated square failed me. But despite the video being demonetized, some of you still managed to get V-Shred adverts on that video, which I find hilarious. Swings and roundabouts. In my last video, I did discuss alternative medicine in relation to Jeremy Buendia. Thank you so much for your input. And chiropractic medicine can also be thought of as a form of alternative medicine. And so my first and important question is, what do you think? Is this cracking of people's body parts complete pseudoscience nonsense, or is it indeed a legitimate medical practice for many ailments, in your opinion? Don't be shy, get involved. And so it seems with chiropractic that it's mostly popular in the US more than any other countries. It's $1 billion industry in the US, and there's over 60,000 chiropractors in the US. However, it's also worth noting that in many countries, it's not recognized or legally recognized, such as in India, China, parts of Europe, South Africa, and most certainly a lot of the use of the word science around chiropractic historically is perhaps not accurate and what we would call a high quality of peer-reviewed research. UFC fighters John Jones, Michelle Waterson, Diego Sanchez, Yoel Romero, Cowboy Cerrone, a who's who of elite MMA athletes have been to Dr. Hightower.
What was your YouTube channel again?
I ain't even worried about the damn YouTube channel right now.
Fitness personalities Juji Mufu, C.T. Fletcher, powerlifters Mark Bell and Ed Cohen.
It's one sit up.
Catch one.
It counts.
And comedian from The Fighter and the Kid, Brian Callen. That is what I call a Christmas party. No Brendan Schaub, bonus. Running joke on the channel. And so it seems like the actual cracking is what people are tuning in for, which kind of reminds me of the Pimple Popper on YouTube, where people tune in to see the popping. And I'm now going to show you a clip from the Pimple Popper.
Just kidding.
And so I'm not a chiropractor. I'm not an expert into this practice. I'm not pretending to give the definitive conclusion on this topic. I just want to present it to you. I want to present different arguments on both sides of the equation in a balanced manner. I want your input. I think it's a genuinely interesting area. There's certainly a lot of scrutiny and controversy around it, but there are rebuttals from chiropractors. And as a side note, Dr. Eric Berg, who gives nutritional instruction and applications,
Wrong.
is a chiropractor. The doctor in his name is from chiropractic medicine, not from some form of nutritional field or other medicinal practices. The channel is a directly instructional nutritional channel. Just floating that out there. And so the arguments against chiropractic medicine essentially come down to the founder, a lack of real peer-reviewed research into the applications and the supposed benefits. And then also just the general idea of someone twisting and cracking for example, fragile parts of your body such as your neck, which may be dangerous. But my personal take is I would not trust someone to crack my neck. It was founded by a man called Daniel David Palmer, who got that reference.
Damn, Daniel.
And to quote a critical study into chiropractic, the birthday of chiropractic is said to be September 18th, 1895. On this day, D.D. Palmer manipulated the spine of a deaf janitor by the name of Harvey Lillard, allegedly curing him of his deafness. Palmer's second patient, a man suffering from heart disease, was also cured. About 1 year later, Palmer opened the first school of chiropractic. There was a systematic review on systematic reviews into chiropractic in 2011, and they looked at 45 systematic reviews, and the conclusion was that collectively these data failed to demonstrate convincingly that spinal manipulation is an effective intervention for any condition. The critical analysis also looked at individual studies, and in relation to safety they said this: therefore there is undeniable evidence that chiropractic is associated with an exorbitantly high incidence of minor adverse effects. And when it comes to the issue of does it work, with the possible exception of back pain, chiropractic spinal manipulation has not been shown to be effective for any medical condition. And so with everything, I think we have to understand there is a spectrum. I'm sure within the world of chiropractic medicine, there are people claiming all sorts of nonsense. There are most likely more conservative chiropractors not claiming they can fix as many problems. And I'm sure there is debate within the community as well. So I think we need to understand that, and that perhaps some chiropractors don't represent all of them. But most certainly, if we look at the evidence base and these systematic reviews on systematic reviews, it is not a strong evidence base that chiropractic medicine can solve a multitude of issues according to this research. But Dr. Hightower himself did make a rebuttal to Joe Rogan, and so I'd like to give some of his key points, but again, please watch his video for balance.
Don't discount professions based on their history. If we did, osteopathic medicine and medical doctors would also be taken out of the equation, because magnetic healing and other types of quackery were very common in 19th century medicine. There were no licensing laws, no formal education.
And so one of the problems with the founder of chiropractic was that he was a magnetic healer, but Dr. Hightower explains that many doctors at that point of history were also known as magnetic healers, and this type of quackery was filtered out, and it doesn't necessarily negate his work in other areas. And in addition, he did have a relation to osteopathy.
The American College of Physicians certainly utilizes manipulation as a frontline therapy for lower back pain. The confusion is chiropractic is not an intervention, it's not a treatment, it's a profession with a scope of practice. In fact, in some states, including New Mexico, they can prescribe medication. Manipulations are performed by many individuals, including osteopaths, doctors of physical therapy, and even medical doctors, even though chiropractors certainly do the most.
And then he does say that there is an evidence base, and he gives this table which shows positive evidence for spinal manipulation and these factors, and the American College of Physicians recommend manipulation as a treatment for certain ailments. But what I would note here is that much of the data, even in the table that he shows, is very much inconclusive. There's a reasonable amount of moderate support for this, but when it comes to high level of evidence base, according to the table that Dr. Hightower shows, again, it does look like it's slightly lacking.
Oh, yeah.
He states that every NFL team has a chiropractor, and he gives this source from the Daily Mail. Please watch his video for balance, but it would seem like there is a need for stronger evidence for spinal manipulation, for example, for certain ailments. And so essentially there's rebuttal on both sides. There's a lot of passion on both sides of the arguments. There's probably a bit of cherry picking on both sides, and perhaps not communicating the full balance of research amongst both sides. But again, when it comes to chiropractic and the twisting and the cracking of your necks and your backs, what do you think? A penny for your thoughts, please.
Biometric science.
When it comes to exercise execution, the performing of an exercise, this can actually affect your risk reward. And in my last video, I referenced Dr. Eddie Joe as a good source of information. And I want to highlight one of his posts into the plyometric box jump. Now, I'm sure many of you are thinking the box jump, we know what that is. What do we need to know about that? Well, actually, maybe some of you may be performing it in a slightly negative way that may increase the risk when you are performing the exercise. The plyometric box jump working on the stretch shortening cycle, the buildup of elastic energy, the stretch shortening cycle meaning this fast transition between the eccentric and concentric phase of the movement. And this is what Dr. Joe says. Select the box height you could clear by just a few inches during a max effort vertical jump. You should not have to tuck your knees to clear the box height. Step down using a smaller box instead of jumping down backwards. This would defeat the purpose of box jumps. The box jump in itself is not a reactive strength exercise. If the box jump is to be incorporated into a reactive strength exercise, it is recommended to use 2 plyo boxes in series. Perform a depth jump from the first plyo box and land on the second one. Most importantly, with any exercise, common sense is your best friend. And so when it comes to high box jumps, of course you may need to have a high platform to jump to, but essentially what Dr. Joe is saying here is that No matter how high you are going, you should be able to clear the box jump so that you're not having to tuck your knees, as this mechanical movement may increase the risk of injury by performing the box jump. And so I thought this little nugget of science was useful and applicable to you, and you may apply this to other exercises that you perform. Your exercise execution, of course, is not just important for you performing effectively, for example, for muscle growth or strength goals, but also for you to try and avoid the risk of injury. Finished.